In this episode of Wealth Talks, we get to listen to an interview Tom did with John Morey, a real estate investor who is also a client of McPhee Insurance.
We get to listen to this interview together, and we'll comment as we go along.
So let's roll the interview. Well, I'm excited today to interview John Morey, a former avionics engineer that dabbled in real estate throughout the 90s. And then in May of 2016, he got serious. He got serious about real estate because, as he said, he got fired from his avionics job. And from then on out, it's kind of history, as they say. I met John here a few years back because he reached out to us about his life insurance policy. He was trying to use it for his investing in real estate. And we had quite a conference back and forth for a while, didn't we, John?
Oh, yes, sir. You know, what I like about what you did for me was it took 4 Zoom calls before we finally said, hey, let's go do it. And then, but what I like about you, though, is you never asked me when to transfer. That really, you touched my heart there. I love that.
Well, thank you for bringing that up because I really believe that education is so important. If people know what they can do, 9 times out of 10, they're going to choose the right thing to do. And so I feel that what we do best here at McPhee Insurance is that we teach people the facts about life insurance. And one of those facts is life insurance is not an investment.
Oh, yes, sir. Right.
In fact, is 1911, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that life insurance was an asset purchase, not an investment. And so people that are out there thinking, oh, I'm going to buy this policy and it's going to make me really wealthy, or it's going to be something I can just turn loose and just pay the premiums and it's going to generate a lot of money for me, that's the wrong concept. And
very wrong. Very wrong.
Yeah. So how did you get interested in life insurance? Because you had a policy long before you talked to me.
Yeah. Well, for some reason, I just been hearing about it here and there in the circles that I'm in. But nobody, for whatever reason, they're just afraid to really just open up and talk about it. So I did the digging on my own. Then when I found these couple of guys, and you know what, it was good. Unfortunately, the way they set mine up, as you saw, right, it was a mech policy, which is not good. Then after that, I started digging some more. I think I have about 11 or 12 books. When I want to know something, I'm going to dig in. So I have a whole bunch of books and learning. Of course, when you first read something, it just goes over your head. Nash is number one, and he's your friend. So that's the first one that I bought. And then there's other authors. But the good thing is that they did talk the same language. But because until I met you to explain it correctly, I was still kind of lost. Then I go, this is how, because you told me, John, you're using that the wrong way, like the way I did for 4 years, and Nelson Nash corrected you. I remember our conversation. So I said, okay. He said, and then you told me, John, thank God we caught you early.
John Morey said his first policy was a mech. People look at high cash value life insurance and they say, well, that's great. More cash value is better. And when they cross a certain design limit, the policy becomes a mech. And so getting too much cash value, you lose the tax favorable status of life insurance. A mech means a modified endowment contract, and that's the line that when you cross, a life insurance policy loses its tax favorable status. So we don't want a mech policy for most of the purposes that we're using life insurance as a financial tool.
We always know we can't say never and always, because that doesn't mean you should never buy a mech, because it can be a great estate planning tool. But for being able to borrow and use money during your lifetime, you don't want mech policy, because then you're going to lose the tax favorable status.
And if you just have a big lump sum of money and you don't want to mess with premiums and you're over 59 and a half, a mech is not necessarily a bad thing. Mm-hmm. It's just that you have to realize that if you have a loan outstanding against it, the dividends are going to be taxable as long as that loan is outstanding.
Yeah, and when you take a policy loan to access some of your capital and repurpose it in some way, then part of that policy loan may be taxable if the policy has grown beyond what you've paid in premiums.
Yes, that's true. So just a word of caution, if you're going to be using a policy for investing like John was doing with his real estate business, you don't want a mech. If you're planning for a estate, if you're planning for retirement, now we're taking a different story. altogether.
So you told John that he was doing things wrong and that you had been doing things wrong. So what were the things that you were doing wrong?
I was thinking wrong. I was thinking that the policy was the bank, because everyone was saying, oh, I'm going to open another bank. And they were talking about opening another policy. But that is wrong thinking. You are becoming your own banker, not the policy, not the insurance company. The insurance company doesn't want to shoulder the responsibilities and regulations of being a bank. So we have to assume that we are the banker. So what's happening is we were taking loans from the policy and paying them back in just a few weeks. And the insurance company said, stop doing this.
There was a lot of book work for them. It's coming in and out. And of course, then it was happening through the mail too. So, we were keeping the post office busy and really taking a long time to put money through. And it just,
And when you
it
think
wasn't
about
making
it,
sense.
doesn't just the value of the transaction, it doesn't create value for
That's
anyone.
right.
So where is the extra value coming from? It's not.
That's right. We should never just confuse action with progress.
Yeah.
And that's true in money as well. So we have to think like a bank. And a bank says, well, how do I make money? I make money off of volume of interest. How do I create volume of interest as my own banker?
Mm-hmm.
And that is where we take a loan from the policy and we use it, we loan it out to someone else or to our investment or to our business or to ourselves personally. And when we pay it back to ourselves, we pay the interest on the policy loan, but we use that money again, just like a bank does their depositors' money.
So we could say that the litmus test here is taking a loan, keeping your money flowing while creating value.
That's right. And when we think properly about each of the steps of the banking process, we won't get confused about who's the bank. The policy, the insurance company is not the bank. You are becoming your own banker.
Well, let's listen to more of the interview.
What drew you to buying your first policy? Why was the life insurance something that enticed you to move that direction?
The biggest thing is the compound interest. I try to explain it this way to people, and I'm successful mostly about maybe 90%. I'll say, so if you have $100,000 sitting in a regular bank, $100,000 sitting in your own bank, with a whole life policy, just doing nothing, let it sit there for 4 years, or 5 years, or 10 years, which one's going to generate more money? Every single one that I ask that question says, well, the one that's compounding. I go, no kidding. That's exactly the reason. So even without doing anything, just let it grow, without even using the life benefits that goes with it, it's going to make you money. But it's not going to make you rich. It's not going to make you wealthy. But it's better than sitting in a bank. You're making less than 1%, and it's ugly. So that's how I explain it.
Compound interest, they say it is the eighth wonder of the world. And we all have heard the story about the Emperor of China that, asked how someone wanted to be paid for inventing the game of chess. 1 grain of rice on each checkerboard, each of the checks on the board, or a mass amount of money. And the chess maker said, oh, just a grain of rice doubled every square on the chessboard will do fine. And when he got up to square number 32, the emperor had him executed because it was going to bankrupt his empire.
So he started out with 1 grain of rice on square 1, square 2, 2 grains, square 3, 4 grains, because you're doubling 2, square 4, 8, then 16, then 32, then 64, then 128. I just went and did the math on that the other day for the amount of rice that would be on the 64th grain, or the 64th square of that checkerboard. It was over 9 quintillion grains of rice. It was massive.
Goodness. So it goes millions, billions, trillions,
quadrillions,
then
quintillions.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know what that would look like, but evidently it didn't look good for the kingdom.
Yeah, it's amazing. Compound interest is amazing. And you think about $50,000. This is an example from your book, Prescription for Wealth. It's on page 42, where you talk about the value of compound interest before taxes and after taxes and see what a difference that makes in the compounding. If you can take an initial deposit of $50,000 and earn 6% on it for 20 years, you're going to end up with $160,000. If you pay taxes as that is compounding, now your real rate of return is closer to 4%. And so you earn 6%, but then you pay taxes of 33% of that growth. So you're keeping only about 4%, you're only going to end up with about $109,000. And you think about that, 50,000 of that was your own money. So it cut your growth in about half.
That's
you get
that's
to
a
keep.
significant difference.
It is significant. And you think about that's the value that you're getting to keep when you build wealth. The compounding in a life insurance policy is tax deferred. If you put that in any other account that's subject to taxes, you're losing that additional growth.
And of course, traditional savings accounts in banks and CDs and things like that are taxed annually on the interest that's growing. So they're they're taking the cream right off the top. But 401ks and IRAs, they are tax deferred as well. But the problem there is when you get to a certain age, you are required to take distributions and taxed on the money that you're taking out because
Tax on
everything was deferred.
everything that you take out of those. And you have to take it out in order to use it. With a life insurance policy, you can take a policy loan and access the money without actually taking it out as a withdrawal.
Yeah.
And that's a non-taxable event.
What a brilliant way John Morey had of explaining the value of the compounding that occurs in a life insurance policy. If you're storing your money in the bank or anywhere else, you're not getting the full benefit of that compounding that you get in the life insurance policy. And you think about it, in the life insurance policy, you're getting that benefit of compounding whether you use the life benefits of the policy or not. It's a wonderful way of explaining it. You don't have to get into the weeds.
Let's watch more of the interview. The other thing is that if you have your money in a bank and you want to make a real estate deal or some other investment and you liquidate your funds at the bank, you stop compounding. Whereas in a life insurance policy, you can access that capital through a policy loan and the compounding doesn't stop.
You're exactly right. And you know, that right there, though, that's where most people get hung up on. They go, there's no way that that's happening. Well, until you really show, I have my regular meetings on second and fourth Friday. Well, one day that was a topic. So I had to use all those creamers that were on there and just move things around. They're like, oh, I said, but this pie stays the way it is. You don't take it out. You just buy, especially the word collateral. In the real estate world, it's easy to explain that to some of my friends because of the word collateral. They know what that is. Layman people, they go, huh? But then you've explained it before, just like your house is collateral with a bank. You could borrow equity, blah, blah, blah. They get that.
What have you personally used your whole life insurance policies collateral for, John?
Yeah, well, the simplest one that I've done really is early on is I had a big balance on my credit card. Well, when I was doing all these crazy stuff in real estate. Well, there was money coming in pretty fast. So I dumped it I dumped it in there. Then I just paid all that off. So now my balance on my credit card, I keep it zero. I don't do anything with it. So that's good. So that's paid off. Then twice now, I bought a couple of cars with that. So, but now my next step is going to be, because I'm only young at this, maybe 3 years now altogether. So what I'm going to do now in my head is either do some private lending or do some joint venturing or use the options. We use options. We could put an option on the house for later on. So all those little things like that, as I grow my cash value, I can do bigger deals. But right now, I'm still trying to build my cash value. So those little things it's going to keep moving me forward.
I love to hear that from people that have used their policy, because that's why it's called the infinite banking concept, is because there are infinite ways that you can put this to work. It's not just with real estate. It's not just with cars. It's not just paying off credit card. There are really infinite ways to use and leverage that cash value.
Just got to be creative.
Creativity.
What I like what you said before was this, because the way I was doing it was incorrectly, but your illustration to me, which is really great, is you said, okay, John, here's your bank. Just like a bank, you're going to borrow your money. Then when you get that money, now what do you do with it? That's now where the creativity comes into play. That's now where the infinite ways come to play. How do you make money with that money that you borrowed from your own bank? That is where, when you and I talk, there you go. It clicked right there.
So right there, I love how John used his policy, used the funds that were coming in to get out of debt. And now he's keeping his credit card at zero, because if he would have used that money coming in to just race off and do another real estate investment, he would still be just chasing and under all this pressure having that debt. But instead, he cleared out that debt. And then
that was the investment that gave him the greatest return.
Oh, absolutely, because now he's not paying all that interest and it frees him up to do other things with his money.
Oh, yeah.
And then also, some people think, I better get out of debt before I purchase this asset of a life insurance policy. And John wasn't doing that. He bought the asset first, and then he used that to clear out his debt. And now, instead of starting at ground zero, he was already up and going with this asset and just able to move forward.
And what really happened here is John began to think like a banker. He put on his banking hat. We talk about a thinking cap. Well, you got to put on your banking cap if you're going to be successful at the infinite banking concept.
Let's watch more.
When did you start Southern Charm Real Estate Conference?
Oh, that one. Okay. Well, we did that just last year. Now this one, my wife was not happy because I shot from the hip. So just a little bit of background. Oh, yeah, she wasn't happy. So the little bit of background is I'm a former salsa professional, and I held 9 events here in Huntsville, Alabama. So they call me Salsa Daddy because I'm the one that started salsa dancing here in Huntsville. Well, I am so used to doing events, so that wasn't a big deal for me. But I did this maybe mid-July, something like that. I decided, you know what, let me go see if I could do an event here because in North Alabama, we don't have one. So I put this together in 2.5 months, just like that. And bingo, and my wife says, when you put your mind to it, it does happen. I go, yes, honey, that's just little Johnny. That's how it worked. And then that was it. And that's why I'm glad you were part of that, because you saw the value that the speakers really make the event and the venue, not me. I'm just a facilitator. The venue and the event, and you could talk about the venue itself. You know how nice that was.
Yeah, and I do. I want to put in a plug for it because I've been invited to speak to a lot of different places, and oftentimes those events become a pitch fest where everyone's trying to sell something and everything. And I can say that every one of the speakers that were at your Southern Charm Real Estate Conference there in Alabama, they were not... Yeah, they were selling something, but they were educating. They weren't just pitching something and run to the back of the room and buy this and raise your credit card debt way up and leave here on credit card debt and not really have anything to take home to really put to practical use.
Yes.
That is so important. So I really appreciate that conference, and hopefully we'll get back invited to speak again.
Oh, you know it. I already got you on there. You're in.
What advice would you give somebody that is looking for a life insurance policy today?
So for me, I do this already. I always say, talk to Tom first. Talk to Mr. McPhee. Then let him just guide you on what are the ins and outs of this thing. And once you're convinced, especially if you're younger, now is the time. Because this is not like when you open up a self-directed IRA, you have to wait for 5 years seasoning and 59 and a half before you can really do much with it, meaning to use it for your personal use or withdrawing. You just can't. That'll be a violation. Here, the moment you have your proper cash value, there you go. You start. But also, this is a long-term play. This is not like, let's go and make some money now. It just depends on where you are in your life and your income and all that kind of good stuff. Just talk to you first. Then after that, make a decision and do it. Because they're going to say, especially the way you explained it, this is long-term play. It's really good for the family, and it is for generational wealth.
It sounds like I was fishing for a compliment there from John Morey in that question, and really I wasn't. I was wanting him to explain, what advice he would give to other people. You don't have to just talk to me. You can call McPhee Insurance. You can talk to anybody here. We all understand the infinite banking concept. I do know that if you ask to talk to me, I will very carefully explain to you how you have to think so that the participating whole life insurance that you do have will work with the infinite banking concept. For those of you that want to find out more about real estate investing and what surrounds hard money lending and all that in that whole sphere, I highly recommend that you get a hold of John Morey at Southern Charm Real Estate Conference. John, do you have a do you have a web page or a telephone number you'd like to give them?
It's really actually very easy. You just put southerncharmre.com. So,
right.
or just Google Southern Charm in North Alabama, will come up. And my number is 256-469-3099. Please reach out to me. I love to help. I love, a lot of people help me. So many people help me. I am not here today because of me. I am here because of the help that I received. And so now, my turn.
But
My
you
turn.
will lead them in a salsa dance, right, when they come?
Oh, I can. You know me. That was my thing. 17 years, man. I love it. We did it, right?
Yes, we did. So, is there any last words you'd like to leave our audience today?
Start now. That's my thing. Once you understand this, well, especially when you've explained it to them, start today. Don't wait. And just a little. Just whatever you can afford, and then do another one. See, right now we're about to do another one, right? So yeah. I got approved and everything. So now I have two. My wife has one, and my two kids, they have theirs. So we're accumulating. We're trying.
Thank you so much, John. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, brother.
John was very direct when he said to get started now. So I want to illustrate that. So here we have the growth line, and here we have the timeline. And when you purchase a policy, you start out very slow. This is a long-term thing, just like John said. The growth isn't very high, but then there is exponential growth as time goes on. So John is telling everyone, start now. Otherwise, you are going to cut off the end results in the exponential growth.
That's so powerful. If you're just listening to this podcast, be sure to go catch the YouTube of the section that Mom just did with this demonstration, because it hits you different when you see those end years of potential growth, the best years, just getting torn away.
You can watch this episode of Wealth Talks on our YouTube channel, and you can also catch choice snippets of other podcasts as well. Next week, we decide, is term insurance a waste of money? The term insurance is the first type of insurance I started with. And when I turned 45, I desperately wish I would have started differently. Next week, we'll talk about all this right here on Wealth Talks.